When I say this meatloaf is a crowd pleaser, I mean it. I run a small catering business and I serve healthy-ish plant-based meals to small groups of people with all kinds of eaters. And this recipe is the favorite. In fact, that's the reason I'm making this video. I felt like it'd be easier just to make a video that I could send people to when they want the recipe. And the reason I think this recipe is the favorite recipe is because it's Grandma's recipe that I just switched up to make vegan. But I still can include Grandma's secret ingredient. Honestly, I didn't even have a family-sized version of this recipe to give to people. I only use this recipe for special occasions because it's not super healthy and it's not really cheap to make. But it's way better than serving meat and it has zero cholesterol. It's perfect for those special occasions when you're serving all different types of eaters at your house because everyone's gonna love it. The recipe I'm going to show you is going to fill a large foil pan like this. If I were going to make this recipe for just my family, I would use about 1/3 of this. But honestly, I would make the whole recipe. You can put 2 of them in the freezer and serve 1 of them and you'll have meals ready to go when you need them. The whole recipe will serve around 24 people. If you do 1/3 of it, you can serve 4 to 8 people, depending on how hungry they are. I'm going to start by getting the breadcrumbs softened. I use the Pepperidge Farm sage and onion stuffing mix, and I pour that into a bowl, and I cover that with plant-based milk. I'm going to let that sit aside until it softens. This is going to make a nice moist meatloaf. While that is soaking, I'm going to go ahead and saute some onions and celery to go into the loaf. And I'm going to add Impossible Burger. This is 4 pounds of Impossible Burger that I buy from Gordon Food Service. You can order it from them, but you could also get it from your local grocery store or one of the price clubs usually has Impossible Burger. The whole recipe calls for 4 pounds. I'm really not a huge fan of straight Impossible Burger. That's why I add a whole bag at the Pepperidge Farm mix, so it's almost half Impossible and half bread. Because it tastes better that way, and that's also what Grandma used to do to save money. When the onions and the celery are soft, I'm going to add them to this large pan. It's the only thing I have big enough to mix up this loaf. Then for seasoning, I'm going to add some sage, some onion and garlic. I'm going to add some of this Hamburger seasoning, and Grandma's secret ingredient, pickle juice. We're just going to add about a 1/2 cup to 3/4 cup in this recipe. So when you're making it home, it's about 1/8 of a cup to 1/4 cup of pickle juice in your recipe. I'm going to mix that all up with my hands because it's the only way to mix. And I'm going to spread it into my pan. At this point, you can freeze it, you can cook it, or you can refrigerate it for later. This is a great recipe for special occasions because you can make it ahead. When I cater, I'll make this loaf, a month or so ahead of time and stick it in the freezer so that I don't have to focus on that when I'm trying to make the rest of the meal. If you're planning for a special dinner at your house, you can make that loaf ahead of time and just pop it in the freezer, pop it into the oven the day you need it. Okay, I went ahead and added the breadcrumbs to the mix. These are the ones that we soaked with milk. And I'm going to give that a stir and mix that all together. I want to incorporate those breadcrumbs really well, and I want to kind of break up those breadcrumbs a little bit so I don't have huge chunks of bread, but I do like to keep some of the breadcrumbs intact. I'm going to continue to mix that until it's all incorporated very well, and then I'm going to put it into my foil pan. When you put it in your foil pan, you're going to want to smooth that out really well and make it even all the way across. And I'm going to put some ketchup on this later, but I'll show you that later. Now that I had this all smoothed out and even, I'm going to go ahead and cover this with foil. Again, if you're making this at home, you can divide this up into 3 different loaves or even 2 different loaves, and you can store it in the freezer, in the refrigerator, or you can bake it the same day you mix it up. I'm going to stick this loaf in the refrigerator now because I have to make 2 more of these for my dinner tomorrow. Okay, it's the next day and I'm going to bake these covered in this oven for 40 minutes. While that's in the oven, I'm going to mix up a little ketchup sauce. I'm going to use the Simply Heinz ketchup because there's no high fructose corn syrup in it. I'm going to add some brown sugar for flavor. And my loaf is mostly cooked, so I'm going to go ahead and add the ketchup sauce now. And then I'm going to spread that out over the entire loaf and put it back into the oven for another 15 to 20 minutes. When I'm catering, I'll serve this loaf with scalloped potatoes because they're easier to make than mashed potatoes. I also serve it with green beans, dinner rolls, and a nice chopped salad. So here's a tip of the day. If you put your salad first, people will eat more of it. It's just another trick to get people to eat a little healthier. It's also a trick if you're going to a potluck and you don't want any leftovers to put your food at the front. Anything that's served at the front of the line gets eaten before the stuff at the back of the line. That also works conversely. So if you want leftovers, you need to put it at the end of the line. Unless you're serving this meatloaf, then probably no leftovers. The meatloaf is ready to serve, and here is the whole dinner that I made for a group of people. I also made a homemade strawberry shortcake with fresh strawberries. I was only able to save myself this one tiny little piece. This is so good, it would make a great meatloaf sandwich. If you're looking for some more crowd-pleasing recipes, then make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell because I'm going to share a lot of great recipes. If you want to make some vegan mashed potatoes, here's a recipe for you right here. So good.